It's Coast to Coast, presented by campus2canton.com. Listen, we're recapping everything from this week 4 of the college football season. I need you guys to do 2 things for me. First of all, jump in the chat. Let us know that you're having fun. We want to know where you're listening from. And then 2, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Turn on your notifications so you can know every single time we go live. We go live in the morning with a tailgate. We tell you who to start, starts and sits. We get you ready for your prize picks, and then Coast to Coast at night. That's what you're here for right now. So hit the subscribe button, turn on your notifications. We start every Coast to Coast with the rundown so we can let you know all of the relevant games and what happened. Let's start with Notre Dame, Wisconsin. This was a bit of a bloodbath game. Jack Cohn goes out in the third quarter. Tyler Buchner was not available. This game was really, really tight all the way through, a defensive showdown. Chris Tyree in the third quarter takes a kickoff for 98 yards after Wisconsin took the lead with a field goal. After that, the momentum was just with Notre Dame, and Wisconsin really couldn't come back. We got to remember, Chris Tyree ran that 4.23 40-yard dash in 2019 coming out of Virginia in 2020. Graham Mertz, a couple of turnovers in this game. Terrible turnover on 3rd and long at the top of the fourth quarter. You know, he's got a problem developing. Very highly touted prospect, but he doesn't have the weapons. He doesn't have the scheme to have the confidence there at Wisconsin, and so he has been struggling. I still believe, though. I still believe he has the arm talent. He has the processing ability. He has the quick twitch, but what he needs is a go-to receiver. He simply doesn't have that. 2 of those interceptions were wide receivers getting bullied for the ball on comebacks. They're getting bullied because cornerbacks know that they're not going to run past them, so they're sitting there on those routes. But we'll see. You know, Graham Mertz might be one of those players who stays for all 4 years. Friend of the show, Brian Chakotis, was very high on Kevin Austin last year. He's been injured. Kevin Austin played very well in this game, including the go-ahead touchdown to really close it out. I think all of the fantasy relevant players, Jalen Berger, no longer fantasy relevant. Chaz Malusi is the one starting there. The players that you want for in this game are going to be Notre Dame. They're going to be Tyler Buchner. They're going to be Chris Tyree, Kyron Williams, and maybe Kevin Austin. Of course, Michael Mayer, who is without question the tight end 1 in fantasy. Austin, let's bring you in here. LSU and Mississippi. We got a couple of high-scoring teams and defenses that are How did this one look today?
Game played out pretty much exactly how you described it there, exactly how you thought it would. 28-25 LSU. Mostly damage done in the passing game for both teams. Mississippi State, Mike Leach there is the head coach, known for that high volume, kind of low A-dot pass attack. Will Rogers today, 47 for 62, 371 yards, 3 touchdowns, a pick. The running backs there combined for about 20 receptions between them. So it's just a typical day. Will Rogers dropped back, nothing up and downfield, hit the running back really quickly, move the chains. They did that most of the day. Jaquavius Marks had a decent day there, 9 catches, 67 yards, a touchdown, another 46 on the ground. The receivers there, nothing really to write home about besides Mekhi Polk, who has taken over the lead job there, 8 catches, 78 yards, and a touchdown. And then just a bunch of other guys that had like 5 catches, 50 yards. Really, again, nothing to write home about. Jaden Wally, a disappointing day, 2 catches, 9 yards. He seems to be an afterthought there when we thought that he could kind of become a huge producer there for our college fantasy purposes. On the
Austin, you've been one of his staunchest supporters. Are you still a supporter of his? Or are you going to start to fade him? Do you still have faith?
I mean, I haven't been starting him at all. Since I guess like week 2. It's too risky. I don't know what happened because he drew the targets there last year down the stretch, and the only guy they really added this offseason was Mekhi Polk on a transfer who kind of failed where he was previously. I mean, it's baffling to me. I don't know if he's in the doghouse. I really don't know what's going on there. But he's fallen in my rankings. And yeah, I'm not starting him on any of the teams that I have him. Shifting over to LSU, Max Johnson had an average day for him, 17-27, 280 yards, 4 touchdowns. Kayshon Boutte led the receivers there. I think, it'd be a shock if he didn't. 4 catches, 85 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's wielding just a ridiculous dominator rating there. And we're going to start asking ourselves whether he even plays in 2022.
Whether he plays in 2023. Yeah. I agree with you.
I think that's a different discussion for a different day. Another offense that everybody else kind of catches 2 or 3 balls here or there. No exciting stat lines. The one surprise there for LSU, Tyrion Davis-Price got the bulk of the carries today, 13 for 51. We thought it might be Corey Kiner's season, 4 carries, 14 yards. So it looks like that backfield is still pretty much completely unsettled. So, I mean, not an overly exciting day outside of the guys that we kind of expected to see something from there in that one.
Austin, you also covered TCU, SMU, a battle of the Texas teams. This was a little bit of a shootout.
Yeah, it was a short jump over there from the Gulf Coast over to Texas for this one. Much more exciting game. A high-scoring 42-34 final score there for SMU. Look, Tanner Mordecai Heisman season, is it here? I don't really know, but SMU is 4-0. Mordecai 17 for 28 today, 245 yards, 4 touchdowns. That offense goes as far as he goes. And all their weapons there today kind of lit it up. Ulysses Bentley, a guy that we've talked about has been disappointing outside of 2 or 3 games here in his college career. 20 carries, 153 yards, a touchdown, and he looked good. He looked shifty. He was explosive. He was creating for himself. Trey Siggers, the other running back there, got 18 carries and had over 100 yards himself. And then the receivers, Danny Gray, been the go-to guy there for SMU all season. 4 catches, 130 yards, a touchdown. Started the day off their first drive with a 60-something yard touchdown catch. He has become the go-to target there when we thought it would be Reggie Roberson, who went 3 for 40 today in a touchdown. Also had Rashee Rice catch a touchdown. So a big effort there. Really the only guy that wasn't firing there for them was Grant Calcaterra, who only had 1 catch. But a big day there for them. On the opposite side, TCU, Zach Evans show today. He was great, to be honest. 15 carries, 113 yards, a touchdown, and then was explosive in the pass game as well. Caught a long touchdown pass there, 370-1. I don't know how long it is until we start bumping Zach Evans up into that tier with Tank Bigsby and Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, really, if he keeps producing like this, I don't know what else he can do. But yeah, big day there for both of those teams offensively.
Do we have to have Zach Evans solidly ahead of Jace McClellan now?
I think so. I mean, we'll talk about Bama later, but McClellan didn't even handle the lion's share there today with Brian Robinson out. It was Roydell Williams. So you have to at least give the edge to the guy. We think we like McClellan, but Zach Evans is doing it week in, week out. Quentin Johnson was held catchless today. So, I mean, this offense scored 34 without him. It was all Zach Evans. I mean, that's a great performance to put on the tape there for him.
We appreciate it, Austin. Yeah, I had to check and see if Quentin Johnston was injured or what was going on there. We'll come back to you a little bit later in the show. Matt Bruning, the game that just ended here, this West Virginia and Oklahoma game. We talked about Tanner Mordecai. He put up a lot of points there today against TCU. What did he left Oklahoma because Spencer Rattler had the job there. What did he look like today?
He did not look good. The fans were chanting for Caleb Williams to come into the game, and rightfully so. It was not a good game at all for Rattler. As you can see here, 26-36, 256, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He just looked rattled in the pocket the entire game. Was not comfortable. Some of that may have been on his offensive line, but he was holding the ball long. Just did not look good. Hasn't really looked good all this season. I think there's a realistic discussion we should start having on whether or not he's actually a first-round pick. You've got the running backs here. Eric Gray, 11 for 37, and Kennedy Brooks, 5 for 17. Neither one of them stepped up. In the receiving game, Mike Woods, 86 yards. Mario Williams, 34. They just, for explosive as Mario Williams looks after he catches the ball for Oklahoma, they really only throw him the ball within like a couple yards of the line of scrimmage. It's not pretty. I don't know what's going on with this offense. Lincoln Riley is known to be this great offensive schemer, and he has not been able to get these wide receivers open like he has in the past couple of years. Even going back to last year, how wide open some of these guys were for Rattler is not happening. On West Virginia's side here, they were switching back and forth between quarterbacks. Doge, or I don't know how to say his name, for the most part was the main guy here. 2029, 160. I think if they would have had a better quarterback, they probably end up winning this game. Letty Brown, a little bit of a disappointing performance here. Just 15 carries for 56 yards, 3.7 average. Bryce Ford White, 93 yards on 8 catches, was the main receiver for the Mountaineers in this game.
Yeah, we really need to think about what Lincoln Riley is doing. I mean, you've got a lot of speed at that wide receiver position, but they really haven't been able to break through and have that explosive offensive game. Matt, you also covered Tennessee and Florida.
Yeah.
How did the Gators and Volunteers look?
This was a great game up until about halftime. Once the third quarter came out, Florida kind of took over this game. It was not really a lot of fun to watch in the second half. Hendon Hooker, though, was doing his best to keep the Volunteers in this game. Did get 2 touchdowns, 221 yards, ran the ball a little bit as well, but Tennessee just doesn't have anything on this offense to keep up with Florida. Emory Jones looked decent in this one, 20 of 27, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns, all at 144 yards on the ground. We again did not see Anthony Richardson, whether that was due to injury or, again, Dan Mullen just not wanting to put him out there for any kind of QB controversy. I think Emory Jones can improve in his game, but overall played very well. And that's really all I have on this game. It was not exciting. Like the defenses played good in the first half, but Florida, clearly the better team, pulled away in the second half.
Let's wait until we see next week and if we see Anthony Richardson fully recovered from that hamstring injury. Matt, thank you. We'll come back to you later in the show. Let's welcome in Biased Opinions himself, Will, Mr. New Yorker. Thank you for coming on with us, one of our teammates here at CampusMcCann.com. For all of your betting needs and information, be sure to hit Will up on Twitter. Will, you covered Texas A&M and Arkansas. Arkansas is looking like a team to be reckoned with.
Listen, let me tell you something. If that's what we're going to get on a number 7 ranked team at Texas A&M, I don't want it. And it's going to get even more difficult as we're going into some SEC matchups, starting with Mississippi State next week. And then after that, you got Alabama. So they're going to go downhill on the trajectory. Not looking too good. Not a lot to touch on there. We touched on this before. Had it not been for Spiller, they would have been in trouble. It would have been a bloodbath. I mean, Spiller did his thing. He ran for 95 yards with a touchdown, and then added with 26 yards receiving, which is good. But not impressed with Calzada. He only had a total of 151 yards, passing, no touchdowns and an interception, looking kind of bad. Another thing that I didn't like for them is that Watermeyer, he should be a big part of the offense. Only had 1 catch for a total of 18 yards, which is not good. But now if we go on the other side of the ball, I mean, you got to like what you saw from KJ Brown. 7 completions, albeit it was for 212 yards with 2 touchdowns, and then he added 8 rushing carries. He had 8 carries for 50 yards. So, and then Traylon Smith, what can you say? 17 receptions for 82 yards. 17 rushing yards, rushing attempts for 82 yards, and then Traylon Burks, 6 receptions with 167 and 1 touchdown. So these guys are looking good. It's going to be something where I think Arkansas may surprise a lot of people in the SEC, but I just don't think anybody's going to be able to compete with Alabama for the year.
Traylon Burks might absolutely be the prize of the 2022 class at all at any position. It's got to be a toss-up between he and, well, maybe Garrett Wilson, maybe Isaiah Spiller. We'll see. Well, we appreciate you. We'll get back to you later on in the show. Brandon, hey, come in here and let's talk about UNC Georgia Tech. Is this one still going on? How did Jahmyr Gibbs and Jeff Sims and company look today?
No, it's finally over. Jeff Sims came in relief. He played very well. He had 10 rushes for over 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs got 60 yards and a touchdown. And the bigger story was how bad UNC offensively was. Georgia Tech had 8 sacks. Sam Howell had 3 fumbles. There were some drops and by the receivers early on, and they just could not run the ball for only 68 yards rushing. And Howell had decent numbers, almost 300 yards, a couple touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. But he was under pressure the whole game. They couldn't get that offense going, and the defense just could not stop Georgia Tech once Jeff Sims came into the game. So he really got going. He threw a passing touchdown too. So he might be the quarterback going forward and be able to lead that Georgia Tech offense with that defense that looks pretty good right now after the performance last week against Clemson and being able to stop North Carolina this week.
Brandon, we appreciate you. Brandon, again, another one of our teammates here at Campus to Ken. It seems like I skipped a game here. This is definitely one that I did not want to skip. There was a lot of Campus to Canton worthy information in this one between Texas Tech and Texas from Casey Thompson, Xavier Worthy, Bijan Robinson, Colin Decker. How did they all look today?
I mean, Bijan was doing Bijan things all day. He's had over 100 yards in 6 of his last 8 games. He goes over 100 yards rushing here. He has almost 100 yards through the air as well. Nice receiving touchdown there that he had as well. So the only complaint that I have for Bijan is we need to stop giving the ball to Roschon Johnson at the goal line. Roschon Johnson had 6 carries inside the 10 and Bijan only had 1. Can we just let the man finish his work off here? I mean, he was killing it all game, and then they kept pulling him out inside the goal line. Just let the guy do his thing. Let him cap it off with a nice touchdown. Xavier Worthy.
Colin, go ahead and apologize to Casey Thompson. Let's get it out.
I had that one next, but I will absolutely not be apologizing to Casey Thompson. He had a very nice day today. I won't take that away from him at all. 303 yards passing, but exactly 1/3 of those yards came from 2 huge catch and runs by his receivers. A lot of weapons there. He game managed his way to a very nice day. He brings a little bit on the ground there as well. He does not typically turn the ball over, so he is fine. For Texas, he is better than Card is. He's what they need. But his arm is a noodle. I mean, you saw the ball die on that touchdown to Worthy. Worthy had to come back and get it. He had that pick in the end zone that also just kind of floated. Seems like he struggles to throw any more than like 30, 35 yards down the field. If things go right, Casey Thompson is fine. But Casey Thompson will not be the reason that Texas wins a game this year, and I will stand by that. We'll go back to Xavier Worthy. Huge day, 3 touchdowns on 5 receptions. 1 long catch and run where he breaks a tackle, uses his speed to the end zone there. But I think the bigger story is he gets 2 looks in the red zone. They were looking his way both times there, and that is something that I wasn't really expecting from him. It's not really something that I thought was in his skill set at this point as a freshman wide receiver, but that's great to see. I mean, he's in on 70.7% of the snaps today, most of them out wide, 35 snaps out wide, 17 in the slot. So they're moving him around a little bit. It seems like it's Xavier Worthy season though.
The clear 2024 wide receiver 1, Xavier Worthy, former Michigan commit, Deshaun Jackson comp. We got to see Texas's offense firing on all cylinders today. Appreciate you, Colin. Obviously, we will come back to you later on in the show. My brother, Matt Bruning, let's come back in here. Lots of stuff going on in college football today. I mean, we got to start with Clemson going down to NC State. DJ Uiagalelei finishes 12 for 26, 111 yards, averaging 4.3 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns to just 1 interception. You know, this one was just ugly. He is currently the 103rd quarterback in the country in quarterback rating. He is not, you just absolutely cannot start him in any fantasy format. You got to park him and just hope that he develops through the end of this season and shows more flashes. Listen, I caught this game and wanted to figure out what the heck is going on. There's a problem that Clemson is running these short intermediate breaking routes designed for slot receivers with players who are better served catching back shoulder fades. we've talked about this before, where all of their wide receivers are 6'4", 190 pounds, yet they're running these 3 and 4 yard outs and those sorts of things, and you just don't see separation. The other thing that sticks out to me, and this always, I've always remembered this theme or this particular issue when Aaron Rodgers brought it up with Mike McCarthy's offense, that they all ran routes independently and they didn't work together in bunch formations or what have you to get open. And I see a lot of that with Clemson. You don't see a lot of scheming to get those guys open. They rely solely on their ability to separate, and they don't have any guys that are able to separate. So this it looks bad. It looks bad, and you can really tell the trust that the offensive coordinator has in. I don't know if it's DJ Uiagalelei or the offensive line, but on 3rd and 8, they're running routes behind the sticks. Somebody's not there's. We're not trusting somebody when we do that. When you're running 5-yard hitches on 3rd and 8, you either don't trust your quarterback or you don't trust your offensive line. And I think it's the offensive line. That NC State team was rushing with 3, dropping 8, and they were still getting pressure. Offensive line was a problem in that Georgia game early on. They need some speed, Matt. They need something different in that offense. They're not running the ball well. They're not doing anything well. And 4.3 yards per attempt is like he's handing the ball off to wide receivers, and just DJU's not looking good.
No, he is not. And I think some of that also comes down to what you mentioned with the offensive play calling. I just think this offense is outdated. We've talked a lot about that here recently on Debbie Debate, behind the scenes at Campus to Canton. I've said before, I did not think Dabo was a good coach. I think a lot of that has come down to the quarterbacks that he had in Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, who were clear game changers, and maybe we're starting to realize that maybe JU isn't that. He is not really raising the floor of anybody around him. I agree that the offensive line does not look great, and that hurts a guy like DJU. Not having a slot receiver, I think, does as well. Having that guy like Amari Rodgers that you can count on to probably find a way to get open in the short area and then maybe find a way to get a first down is hurting them as well. They've got nothing but it seems like 6-foot wide receivers, none of which are incredibly fast either. I don't know what's going to happen with Clemson down the stretch. I'm sure Dabo is going to come out and make some excuses for them later today on why they can't win or they should still be considered in the playoff consideration. They've got to do better at recruiting because I'm almost positive they don't have a good wide receiver coming in. I think they got one guy that could be a slot wide receiver coming in next year's class. The running backs aren't all that solid. I know Will Shipley got hurt. I don't know if it was serious or not in this game. It's just this is not a good team right now. They don't have a transcendent quarterback, it looks like, in a Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun Watson that can raise the level of everybody around them to make them a very good team.
I do want to note that there were just 2 really good throws by DJU in this game. On one particular play, he was in the grasp of a defensive lineman, got out of the grasp, and then floated a corner route to, I believe it was Nada. I mean, it was 25 yards down the field. Nada had 2 defenders around him, and DJU kind of threw him open. Again, just getting out of the grasp of a defensive end who was going to sack him. Just a really nice play. And then he had about a 30-yard touchdown to Justin Ross today where he scrambled to the right, threw the ball, and hit Justin Ross high and tight. I mean, it's just that ball was on a rope. So he is still showing flashes, but I mean, he talked about Graham Mertz earlier. I don't know that DJU has a go-to wide receiver. Oklahoma does have go-to wide receivers, but their offense is still stagnant, Matt. Spencer Rattler, 26 for 36 today, 256 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception against West Virginia. They needed a field goal to win 16-13 late as time expired that day. You got OU fans shouting, "We want Caleb." I think it's time to be concerned about this offense, about Spencer Rattler. They might have offensive line problems too. That West Virginia defense is ranked 40th in total defense, 34th in pass defense, and 61st in rushing yards allowed. But we shouldn't be talking about defenses when Lincoln Riley's the coach, when you've got Mario Williams, you've got Marvin Mims, you've got Mike Woods, you've got all of these, you got Austin Stogner, all of these weapons. and we just haven't really seen Oklahoma fire on all cylinders, even though they're still undefeated, so they're winning. But we haven't seen the best of this offense yet, and I'm not sure if we will this season.
I don't think we will. And had this been a 1 week thing, I would probably be saying, hey, let's pump the brakes. They didn't look good against a Tulane team that I think is decent, but they're not good. They almost got beat by Nebraska last week, who I know is not good. I shouldn't say not good, but they're not great. I wouldn't have been surprised had they struggled against a team like West Virginia. You just talked about how good their defense is. I think it just points even more to maybe Eric Gray is not quite the guy many thought that he was going to be coming over here, and the fact that they couldn't get anything going in the rushing game. Kennedy Brooks didn't look great, but I'm with you. They've got these incredible wide receivers. Last year, if you go and you were watching film or watching even just the games on TV, Lincoln Riley was scheming these guys wide open. There was multiple plays where Marvin Mims was coming from one side of the formation, just getting wide open. Spencer Rattler was getting to hit him with 20 yards of space. We're not seeing that. I don't know if it's an issue with play calling, if it's an issue with the offensive line, because today it did look like they were not giving Rattler enough time to be able to allow those plays to develop down the field. That being said, Rattler was still missing on throws. There was one throw that he made into the end zone in a very tight window. He almost complete. That was very impressive, but he just has not looked the same. Kevin Coleman, who's a part of our team over here, mentioned on Twitter that there are rumors that there's stuff going on behind the scenes with Rattler. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but he does not look like the same player he looked in the back half of last season. And maybe that's all it is. Maybe he just struggles at the beginning of the season, takes a little bit of time to get going. We'll see. But if they keep playing like this, they're going to get knocked off by Texas. I wouldn't even be surprised if they get knocked off. I don't think they won't play. They're going to get knocked off by somebody. There's no way they're going to go through the season undefeated if they continue playing this way.
An interesting story that I want to track is what happens to Spencer Rattler at the end of the season, because he could potentially decide to come back and not go to the NFL draft. I don't think it's guaranteed that he actually keeps the job next year. So could we see this Heisman front-running candidate potentially transfer to another school, because you've already got the fans there cheering for Caleb Williams. And say what you want about Caleb Williams as a passer. He is going to be an elite rusher. He's going to be Anthony Richardson. He's going to be Cam Newton. And he's going to be the best rusher that Lincoln Riley has had since Kyler Murray. And he's a different type of rusher. He's got that Tim Tebow type size. So, I'm really interested to see what happens to Spencer Rattler at the end of this season if he continues to play the way he has and he doesn't project as a first-round draft pick, because I don't think right now that an NFL team is going to invest first-round draft capital in him. Now, your first-round quarterback in your heart, Matt Bruning, Kyle McCord got the start today.
Yep.
That Ohio State offense looked a little bit different, even though it was a weaker opponent.
Yeah, he, let's be honest, he struggled to start off this game. Overthrow on Chris Olave, threw one behind Chris Olave as well, missed Garrett Wilson. He started to settle down after the third drive. Looked like Ryan Day started getting him a little bit of those shorter throws we were seeing C.J. Stroud make, a little bit behind the line stuff, screen passes to kind of get McCord in rhythm. He definitely progressed as the game went on. I know people expect me to not be unbiased here. I don't know that he played good enough to push Stroud, though, if I'm being honest. He had some really good throws in this game. The touch throw to Emeka. There was a throw to JSN where he had to adjust to it a little bit, but still a very good throw. I think we saw the differences regardless of Stroud's issues with the shoulder, which we still don't know what's going on. I think we saw McCord clearly has more zip on his passes than Stroud does. Some of the throws he made to the opposite sideline were really good, and that's what we know with him. But we also saw the mistakes and what Ryan Day has been worried about. In the third quarter, he did a really good job of avoiding the rushes, moving around in the pocket, extending the play, and then he throws a bad pass that's intercepted. And that's always been the issue Ryan Day has with him. He just wants you to distribute the ball. He doesn't want to come back to the sideline and say, what were you thinking? And those were the exact words he gave McCord. You could see the look on his face as McCord came back over at the interception. He's like, what were you doing? And I think that's the biggest issue with McCord. I hope that he continues to get some playing time. There were rumors that if he played well enough, they were going to give him some time against Rutgers and Maryland. And then you go into the bye week and maybe you see a quarterback change. We'll see what happens. I thought he played good, but maybe not good enough to push Stroud for that starting job.
First time a true freshman quarterback and running back starting in the same backfield for Ohio State. McCord was 13 for 18 for 319 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Very impressive, 17.7 yards per attempt average. I always like to see that number over. I mean, he's playing Akron, but I like to see that number over 10. Just for comparison, last week against Tulsa, CJ Stroud was at 7.4 yards per attempt, and against Oregon, he was at 9. So, all right. Those are the headlines for this week. Let's bring in the rest of the crew here to talk about whose value saw the biggest change today in campus to Canton formats, bringing in Austin and Colin. Who else is here? All right. Austin, I'm gonna toss it to you. Whose value changed this week?
Yeah, thanks Felix here. A busy week in college football, guys. Thanks again to the three of you for hopping in here with us. Again, Will, Colin, and Brandon. Guys, we do a weekly stock up, stock down here. Colin, I'm going to come to you first. Who do you think today saw their stock move one way or the other the most?
This is a guy that's raised his stock throughout the beginning of this season so far, and just raised it again today, and that's Zach Charbonnet. He handled the bulk of the carries here in this one. He gets 25 carries, 209 yards, and a touchdown. Also 5 receptions for 49 yards. I mean, he just had a stellar day overall, and he's just had an extremely efficient start to the season this year. He's averaging 10.5 yards per carry. That's not going to continue, but he's scored at least 1 touchdown in every game this year. And the fact that he got the bulk of the carries today, 25 carries, Britton Brown had 8. It shows that Chip Kelly's starting to trust him. And he's a guy that you're going to be able to rely on week in and week out for your C2C rosters from the college side. And then he's showing his Devy potential. He's showing what he showed the freshman year at Michigan when he kind of showed out. Had a down year his sophomore year, but we're seeing why he was such a highly rated prospect coming out.
Is he somebody, Colin, that you're comfortable now in a C2C league starting pretty much weekly, barring some sort of crazy difficult matchup? I mean, they're scheduled the rest of the year. Let me just read it off to you here. They have next week Arizona State, and they have Arizona, Washington, Oregon, Utah, Colorado, USC, and Cal. Is Oregon the only game there that gives you some pause, or are you even worried about that one?
The Oregon game maybe gives me a little bit of pause, but honestly, and again, the efficiency is not going to continue, but through 4 games, he's averaging 10.5 yards a carry. First game, 6 carries, he gets 106 yards and 3 touchdowns. Second game, 11 carries, 117 yards and a touchdown. So even if the volume isn't necessarily there, which I think it will be moving forward after what we saw tonight, he's shown that he can put up huge games on a small amount of carries. So yeah, I think I would start him every week. Even if this game where he sees 25 carries is maybe a little bit more of an aberration, which I don't think it is, but even if it is, he's still produced every week. You have to start him.
All right, Will, let's come over to you. Who do you think saw a significant shift in value today?
Man, I tell you what, first of all, I was all on, you guys call him Charbonnet, I call him Carbonate, but I was really high on him. So we're going to go with another guy right behind them, and I was shot down by Brandon, but I got Adrian Martinez. I know him as Heisman Martinez, just for the simple fact that this guy's playing well. If you look at what he did today against Michigan State, passed for 248 yards, rushed for 52 yards, and added 2 touchdowns. But he's doing his thing. They already entered into Big Ten play. The Big Ten we saw today, they're not playing well, so anything could happen. I know that right now they're sitting at 2-3, but anything could happen. Let's say like they just run the table in the Big Ten and come out a winner. You may see him get called to New York. Radio City Music Hall has his name written down. We'll see. There's a lot of laughter over here, but I'm going with my guy. I'm the front runner right now with Adrian Martinez, hashtag Heisman Martinez. I'm gonna get a petition going for him, but I really like what he's doing. Finally, his final year in Nebraska, he's getting to his own. May be able to save Frost's job today. As well for the season. He continues to play well. They didn't win the game, but it hasn't been one of those things where they were out of it early on in the game.
I think the jokes on Adrian Martinez are a garbage time, compiler and all those kinds of things. Past couple weeks hasn't been garbage time, has it? I mean, 2 close games there against Oklahoma last week, and then they almost pulled it out today against Michigan State.
Absolutely. So, like I said, I mean, they're getting into Big Ten play right now. It's not the conference that we've seen in the last couple of years. So I think that he's going to be able to do some things coming up and just build on those numbers.
Yeah, and Brandon, let's come over to you. Who did you think had the biggest shift in value today?
Yeah, I just want to say about Heisman Martinez, I did make jokes before the show, but I actually did start him in a C2C league today, so I was happy with his stats. So, yeah, I think Treylon Burks, I didn't think he was going to have as big of a game this week. You know, there's the pictures of him in the boot and with Texas A&M's defense, but he had a great game. He had that long 85-yard touchdown, just showing his, his smooth route running and, his balance to, kind of run all the way there. And he just had a huge game, and he's had a slow start to the year. He had a big game last week against a lower level opponent, but to see him do it against a very good SEC defense was very nice. And if he can continue that the rest of the year, he could possibly move up to that wide receiver 1 by the end of the year.
It's crazy. They only passed the ball 19 times today. He had 6 catches for 167 yards and a touchdown. I know we've talked a lot bit on the C2C pod about KJ Jefferson holding him back. Maybe not. Maybe it really doesn't matter. Almost had another big catch there on the sideline today. I'll toss out a name real quick before we move on to Jarek's piece here for the week. Brock Bowers. We had a discussion about him a couple weeks ago on Debbie Debate. Is he the tight end too? I said yes, but even then I thought that discussion was probably a little premature. We were only a couple games into the year. We didn't know what was happening with Darnell Washington. I think today pretty much solidified it. We've kept counting this guy out. 80 yards today between receiving and rushing the ball, 3 total touchdowns, 4 catches. He's a major part of their offense as a true freshman. He's big. He's athletic. You want to see him gain a little more weight and clean some things up. But I mean, as a true freshman to go in there and basically lead Georgia and most of these major receiving statistics, I think even the staunchest Brock Bowers supporters preseason would have not believed you if you told them that. I mean, I think the only other tight end I think you can debate about it with is Jalen Weidermeyer, and he's kind of struggled again this year, and he's definitely not the athlete that Brock Bowers is. So I'm excited to see what this kid does over the next couple of years there. Hopefully they have some sort of plan for quarterback after JT Daniels goes. But, man, Brock Bowers has just been blowing me away here these past couple weeks. And apologies to him. I doubted him before the season. So I know he's out there watching today. So apologies to Mr. Bowers. All right, let's take this over. Thanks for joining us here for this segment, guys. And I think, Will, you are out for the night. So you can find him at biasedopinions_ on Twitter. Will, thanks for joining us. Hopefully we can get you on again here soon. Let's kick this over. Jarek does his weekly By the Numbers segment, and he has one today on G5 quarterbacks.
When you just don't understand the numbers, it's time to dive into the classroom with the beautiful mind of Jarek Backus and By the Numbers.
Thanks. Today I'll be looking at which G5 quarterbacks I believe have the best shot at draft capital. For this, I'll be looking back the last 10 years to see which QBs have historically gotten day 1 and 2 draft capital. Then I'll take that info and apply it to the 2022 class to see which of them have the best shot. The metrics I care about most for projecting college QBs to the NFL, and the ones I'll be looking at here, are average QBR, which is ESPN's quarterback rating on a scale of 0 to 100, EPA per play, the expected points the quarterback added averaged by the number of plays, adjusted yards per attempt, the average yards per attempt with a boost added for touchdowns and a penalty for interceptions, completion percent, and rush yards share, the team share of rushing yards. These give you a well-rounded picture of the player and how they should translate. Looking back at the last 10 years, some of the G5 players who have gotten good draft capital are Colin Kaepernick, Derek Carr, Zach Wilson, Jordan Love, Josh Allen, etc. When you take these players and find the group's average for the stats I listed earlier, we can whittle the list of G5 QBs in the 2022 class down to only 6 names: Lane Hatcher, Grayson McCall, Malik Willis, Dustin Crum, Jack Cohn, and Tanner Mordecai. These players all had over the average for the metrics I care about. Those values are a QBR of greater than 66, an EPA per play greater than 0.35, a completion percentage of greater than 62%, and an adjusted yards per attempt of greater than 8. Digging into these players a little more, I can't tell you everyone will declare this year, but we can look a little deeper to see which ones have the best shot at NFL success. My number one out of this group is Malik Willis of Liberty. He has the highest QBR at 86, EPA per play at .56, and rushing yards share with a massive 30% of his team's yards. He was also getting first-round buzz before the season even started. My number two is Grayson McCall of Coastal Carolina. He has the highest adjusted yards per attempt at 12.7, which is super impressive, a completion percentage of 74, and is a close second to Malik Willis in QBR and EPA per play. My third on this list is Tanner Mordecai of SMU. He has an impressive AYA, completion percent, and EPA per play, but his QBR is really lacking. QBR adjusts for opponents, so Mordecai's other stats may look good due to him facing lower competition. These are the 3 G5 QBs I see who have the best shot at day 1 and 2 draft capital. So, you may be thinking, where's Carson Strong? It's a travesty to leave him off. Well, I've seen the highlights too, and they look like he has pinpoint accuracy, but the highlights don't capture everything. For one, his average QBR is only 53. Yikes. His rush yard share is literally negative, his completion percentage is 67, and his adjusted yards per attempt is only 7.8. He literally only checks one box, and that's completion percentage. I'm just not impressed. So, in summary, my top 3 QBs I see getting day 1 and 2 draft cap are Malik Willis, Grayson McCall, and Tanner Mordecai. Thanks. Now back to you.
And here I am ignoring Jarek shading Carson Strong. I'm going to have a conversation with Jarek. What's going on, Austin?
Hey, how's it going? Long time no talk.
Long time no talk. Austin is here with our Left Coast check-in tonight. Kevin Coleman is on. We got to give guys a little time off. So Kevin is taking some time off. Austin, let's check in here with South Florida BYU on right now. How's my guy Brian Batey looking?
Well, we talked before the show. You said, how's Brian Batey looking now? He had -5 yards. Now he has 2 yards. So things looking up there for your guy Brian Batey. Things
like 700% improvement.
Things not looking up for South Florida. Listen, I think BYU is definitely a better team than most of us thought they would be, losing Zach Wilson. They don't have Jaron Hall tonight. He got knocked out at the end of their game last week. Said that he just had the wind knocked out of him. He got knocked out in like their last play. Didn't come back in. Arizona got the ball and they ran out the clock with it. He said if they had gone back on the field, he would have come back in. Well, he's not playing at all this week. I don't know if they just kind of viewed this as a game where they could get through without him or not, but they have Baylor Romney in at quarterback, who's been serviceable tonight, 13 for 16, 181 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tyler Algier getting himself going as well there with 2 touchdowns on the ground. And then Puka Nacua, a guy that we left for dead there, has 3 catches for 75 yards. And nothing notable to report on the other side there, but 28-6 at the half.
Puka Nacua, the old Washington product, that now they're at BYU. Arizona and Oregon, have we seen Tyler Thompson yet?
This game has not been the blowout that I thought it would be necessarily. Oregon is kind of letting them hang around. It's 24-10 here with about 4 minutes left in the second quarter. Anthony Brown is typical Anthony Brown self, not a great passer, 99 yards, 2 touchdowns here in the first half. The running game, I don't know if they're resting Verdell tonight. He's only got 4 carries. It's Travis Dye, Anthony Brown are out rushing him there. Just not a particularly exciting offensive performance there. And Arizona, I'll be honest, apologies if there's Arizona fans watching, but do we really care about anybody on that team? They're in contention with Vanderbilt for the worst team in the Power 5. That's all I got to say about that.
We need to put a bowl game together with Arizona and Vandy. And, I want to see the money line on that one. All right, Oregon State and USC. No Jackson Dart this week, Austin, or for the rest of the season, likely.
Watching this game right now, 14-7 here, USC. Oregon State has the ball and driving with about 6 minutes left in the second quarter. This has been a really, really weird game. Neither team particularly great on offense right now. USC's second touchdown came when Keaton Slovis fumbled a snap in the shotgun. Keontae Ingram picked it up and ran it in from like 15, 20 yards out. That drive started when Oregon State threw a pick in USC's end zone. I mean, it's kind of been back and forth, but not a lot of big performances here. So we'll see if Oregon State can tie this thing up here before the half.
And then finally, Colorado and Arizona State.
14-3.
No Diamante Trainium today.
Still no Trainium. I don't know. They really keep saying he's going to be back this week and no sign of him yet. Halftime there, basically 14-3. The game has gone back exactly how you'd expect it to. Jaden Daniels, fine through the air, 10 for 16, 138 yards. Rashad White has the touchdown there for them, 7 carries for him. LV Bunkley Shelton sighting, a couple of catches. But nothing else really there to report on the other side of it. Colorado, Broussard has 7 carries, 3 yards. I mean, it's not a very exciting offense there. They struggle with the ball. So I think this is going to be an Arizona State win here.
We really need to start thinking about where Rashad White will be drafted and how he ranks amongst this 2022 class. I could see him having the size and the pass catching ability to get day 2 draft capital. All right. Let's bring in the rest of the group here. Whoever's left, whoever is left here in the Campus to Canton team, bring everybody in. Hey, Brandon, Colin, I don't know where should we start. How about this? I'm going to throw it to the group. Anyone just jump in and answer. Do we owe Kyle McCord an apology after his performance today?
Yes, you do.
Oh man,
That's all I had to say, Austin. I can go back and win now. That's
okay. I said, Matt, do you want in?
I mean, Matt, go ahead, man. Why do we owe Kyle McCord an apology?
I could go and pull all the receipts if you'd like, Felix. He's never going to start a game. He's going to transfer by September. He's never going to throw a pass for Ohio State. I mean, he did not look that bad out there.
Like Austin said all the same things.
Austin, if I remember, and I don't want to side with Austin here because he did kind of throw McCord under the bus a little bit. The thing that Austin did say was the only reason he thought McCord wouldn't win the job is because Stroud had been there longer, but that he has openly said multiple times that he thinks Kyle McCord is a very good quarterback. So I don't want to throw Austin under the bus too much. I don't remember him ever saying Stroud was better than McCord. Usually it was Stroud's been there longer. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that. Now maybe it was just you trying to rile me up all the time, but you went after Kyle McCord like he stole your girlfriend or something that time. So
Kyle McCord looked really good today. He definitely has a better ball than CJ Stroud, but we'll see how they look next week and how the quarterback reps are distributed there. If we're going to talk about Ohio State, Brandon, let's go ahead and jump to Michigan. This was not the blowout that we expected it to be. Michigan taking on Rutgers. Who should be starting for the Wolverines at quarterback?
So I think they've kind of missed their opportunity to put McCarthy in because they're at Wisconsin and at Nebraska, and that's 2 weeks. So they did play him the second half last week, and I assume they thought that they would get to play him more today. This was really the first time where Cade McNamara really, really looked bad when the game was up for grabs. They couldn't run the ball, so that was worrisome. So I think Cade will probably get the rest of the year unless they drop a couple and then want to play McCarthy. But I think Harbaugh may probably mismanage the ability to get McCarthy in for the rest of the season this year.
For those who haven't seen J.J. McCarthy or Michigan play this year, because there's not a game that you would really want to watch Michigan yet this year. What type of player is McCarthy to you, Brandon Hay?
Yeah, I think he definitely has more of the running capability. He's done a couple of read options where he's ran for some yards. He's more of the gunslinger. He has more arm talent than McNamara. He's still, I don't think, is totally ready, so I can't really blame Harbaugh, fully for that. But for Michigan to fully reach their potential and compete with Penn State and Ohio State, they need a better passing game. And right now they just don't have it. I've defended McNamara a little bit the first couple of weeks, but today was really bad. And to be totally honest, Rutgers should have won this game.
Rutgers should have won this game, and there are a lot of teams that need better passing games, especially when you're averaging under 5 yards an attempt, Colin. Where would you rank DJ Uiagalelei amongst your quarterback rankings? I mean, are you moving him at all?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like at this point, honestly, I have to move him down. I, like everybody else at our site, with the exception of Alfred, has DJU as our number 1 quarterback at this point. And with the rankings update coming out on this weekend, that may change, but it's going to change for me. You have to drop him at this point. You know, we gave him the benefit of the doubt early on in the season. We remember that Notre Dame game last year fondly, but we have not seen the same thing this year. Honestly, the offensive line does not look good. He looks a little bit rattled at times. He's not been handling the pressure very well. I don't think his receivers have been doing him much of a favor either, but he just does not look like the quarterback that we saw last year in that small sample size, and in a bigger sample size this year. I think we had to take that and weight that heavier. So yeah, he's absolutely dropping for me. Austin,
let's do a name game for DJ Uiagalelei. DJU or Spencer Rattler?
Jeez, you plan on giving me the hardest one the whole time? Rattler, because I think we've seen him put together more than one game in a row before that was good, and we have not seen that out of DJU. So I will take Rattler out of both.
DJU or Sam Howell?
I'll take Howell, even though the perceived upside is not as great. I think he's a little more consistent.
DJU or Matt Corral?
Corral. I think I would take him. I prefer him at this point.
DJU or Carson Strong?
Have a good night, everyone. DJU, I think, narrowly. I don't particularly like either at this point. So okay. Jarek doesn't either. Jarek's got my back.
All right. What else is here? What else do we need to talk about? Do we need to talk about Zach Evans? Zach Evans is, I think he's definitely behind the top 3, the big 3 of the 2023 class. And I'm not, Jace McClellan, Austin, you mentioned it. Jace McClellan was playing second fiddle. Now, he had a very good game, but he was playing second fiddle to Roydell Williams today. He still has the all-purpose skill set, but for some reason, he's not really taking the lead. Even in the spring game, he was playing with the second team, and Roydell Williams was playing with the first team in the spring game, and then today playing second fiddle to Roydell Williams again.
He's had a role every week.
Mm-hmm.
I think Saban just, and we said this after the spring game, I think Saban just views Roydell as the like-for-like replacement for Brian Robinson, and he, for some reason, feels like Jace McClellan gives him something a little different. Jace McClellan is like 5'11", 215. It's not like he's a scat back. He's not this tiny guy that's back there, and then you have, a big bruiser in Robinson or Roydell or whatever. I mean, he's a between the tackles guy. I'm a little confused as to why this breakdown is kind of shaken out like it has. So I guess that's something for us to monitor a little bit. But at the same time, Josh Jacobs had that role there. For whatever you think of Josh Jacobs, and he was a first-round NFL draft pick, spelling some other guys there that were seen as maybe more of the bruiser back. So it's not the end of the world for Jace McClellan's stock. It just seems Zach Evans, I mean, he was their offense today. I mean, Dugan was fine. He wasn't terrible or anything, but no Quentin Johnston really. I mean, he played the whole game. He just didn't catch a ball. Evans was really the only reason they were in that game for large stretches of it. So I think that matters.
Colin, how high is Brandon Thomas? We're talking about Jace McClellan here, and I want to talk about another 2023 back. Brandon Thomas from Memphis. How high is he going to move up in your rankings amongst that class?
Amongst that class specifically, I don't have my 2023 class rankings like really solidified, but I do have him as my RB 49 overall right now in all of C2C. And
just
I think
off the top of your head, Chris Tyree or Brandon Thomas?
Brandon Thomas, easy.
Okay. All right. Matt, you had a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, so Brandon, you were talking a little bit about J.J. McCarthy there with Michigan. I somewhat disagree that they need to go to more of a passing game. I mean, I think their biggest game is probably going to be Ohio State, and we've seen that probably the five of us could put together a pretty good rushing attack against Ohio State's defense right now. So Michigan has been killing it on the ground. But as you mentioned, their passing game has not been successful, and neither has Notre Dame's. Do you think that either one of them are going to switch to these freshmen before the end of the season? And I'll go to Notre Dame first because I think they've been the more vulnerable team. Should Brian Kelly do it quicker, Austin, so that they don't lose a game? Because once they lose, they are out of the playoff conversation. And they're going to lose next week to Cincinnati anyways.
Well, I mean, Tyler Buckner was out with a hamstring injury this week, but Brian Kelly may be forced into making that decision because Drew Pine played in this one, and you got to believe Buckner would, if he were available, would have at least played today. Might have gotten the majority of the snaps after Cone went out. If Cone is injured, then Brian Kelly's hand might be forced. I don't think that we see J.J. McCarthy this year. I mean, Jim Harbaugh just doesn't seem like. He seems like he's going to go the down with the ship type of coach and just continue to play with McNamara no matter what. So that's just I don't know. I don't see McCarthy starting any games this year.
It's amazing that a team took the cast off from an offense as poor as Wisconsin's, the guy that lost that battle, and thought that he was good enough to be the starting quarterback on a top 10 team. Honestly, actually, you know what surprised me the most about Notre Dame today? This is totally off topic. The fact that they've let Kelly hang around there long enough to become their all-time leader in wins, that's embarrassing. For a school like Notre Dame that has the aspirations they do, they've allowed that man to be there, the head coach, long enough to become their all-time winningest head coach. I'm sorry, Irish fans. I actually feel for you on that one.
I mean, he's gotten them in the playoffs. You know, how many other coaches can say that?
And they've gotten blasted.
They have.
He took them to the title, even though they got blasted in that game too.
They've never been a real contender. They've never
that's
been
the thing,
a real
though. If you
that
set the bar
title
at if you set the bar at the playoffs, I mean, what Chip Kelly got Oregon in. I don't even remember who Washington's head coach was at the time that Washington got in. So, like, you're not really setting the bar high with some of the, like, if you were talking about him getting in, like, what Chip Kelly's a high bar. He's been in twice.
Well, I just think that the playoffs is a high bar. I mean, look at you can pretty much count in Alabama every year. You can count in Clemson every year, but this year, not going to get in this year. You can count in Ohio State pretty much every year. So you have how many teams fighting for one spot? I think the fact that he's gotten them in is impressive.
But it typically goes to an undefeated team and they never play anybody. That's the problem.
That's what it comes down to, is they're coasting off of reputation a bit.
Yes.
As opposed to actual play and quality wins. You don't see that as much out of Notre Dame because of their schedule, but he's still gotten them in, and not that many other coaches can say that. And I never thought I would be defending Brian Kelly here. So
that title appearance versus Alabama, I mean, it's always going to be overshadowed by Manti Te'o's fake girlfriend. I mean, that's always going to be.
Not even that. They shouldn't have been there if fucking Ohio State wouldn't have gotten banned from a bowl appearance that year. They were undefeated. That was Urban Meyer's first year, if I'm remembering correctly. But due to whatever it was that happened with Tress, I can't remember the tattoo gate. Tattoo gate cost them a chance to be in a national championship. Now, they would not have beaten Alabama, but
that was Ohio State's own fault, though. They were so arrogant. I mean, they were so arrogant that they didn't think they would get caught, so they played that sits year the year before in the Gator Bowl. They should have just taken the bowl ban that year, and then they could have played in the national championship. They
I
just
don't know
thought
that
they were
you
above the
blame
law.
Ohio State. You blame Terrell Pryor. Like, you blame the players
All
that
right,
did it.
all right, Michigan, Ohio State fan. All right, back up to your corners. Anything else? Let's wrap up. Thank you, guys. We'll see you guys again next week. Matt, Colin, Brandon, appreciate you. Austin, I mean, week 4 was okay, but we've got some really good games in week 5. I mean, I think the headline is probably Ole Miss, Alabama, but you've got Iowa and Maryland battling on Friday night. That's going to be a top 10, top 15 matchup there. Arkansas at Georgia, and then Cincinnati, a potential Final Four playoff contender. They're taking on Notre Dame, the one big game on their schedule.
Even beyond those ones, there's a lot of other. I mean, Auburn, LSU is a big game. Arizona State, UCLA. There was another one I saw as well. Oklahoma, Kansas State, I think, would be an interesting one there. I think Oklahoma could lose that one. I mean,
they could. They lost it last year. Yeah.
So a lot of really big games. I think the one that I'm most interested there is that Cincinnati Notre Dame game, because that is a must-win game for Cincinnati. I mean, there is. I think for most G5 teams, we would say it's an unrealistic goal to go into the season and say that the end goal for us is to make the playoffs, or else we have failed this season. I think that is legitimately their goal, and if they lose this weekend, they cannot do that. So big game there for them.
And if they win out, there's going to be no Ohio State in the playoff. There's going to be no Iowa State in the playoff. Cincinnati is going to be right there. Cincinnati is going to be right there to lock up a playoff spot at the end of the season.
Oh, that's unfolding perfectly for them. They're sitting there and just doing the little evil villain thing with their fingers. Yeah, that's what's going on.
It is, and of course we will be here to take you from coast to coast following week 5. On behalf of everyone here at Campus to Canton, our thoughts and prayers are with the Tagliere family after losing Mike today. Again, we're thinking about that family.